Working for the Internet Archive, and of course, being generally known for this sort of thing, I get into a lot of what I call the third act of archiving. The period of time when age and wearing out of energy causes you to look back at what you've collected, what you've put together in some sort of thematic pile, locker, shelf space, or otherwise, and the next decision has to be made. Some people have the decision made for them medically, or with an unexpected change in finances or contracts. But many, more than you would think, sit back, look at what they've done, and decide they have to do something next before it's all lost completely. The swirl of emotions, of concerns, of confronting one's own end leads to similar but always fascinating experiences. And I like to think that I've learned a number of lessons watching these folks go through what I will inevitably go through in the future. Maybe you'll be going through it too. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Jeff Atwood and the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. Some people collect a few things. Maybe they go to an anime convention, get a bunch of programs and flyers, put them into a box, and call it a day. Others will have every romance novel from a certain author or a publishing arm and discover later that they have hundreds of these sitting in a box somewhere in the attic. Others are confronting what they think of as a gap in the world's knowledge, a potential pitfall, a black hole of awareness of a subject, a creation, event, any entity you might think of. Those people start to collect not just one or two things, but many things, adjacent in some cases to the subject at hand, because they perceive that they are building something. They're building something of consequence and long-lasting meaning. Again, it's very easy to have a lot of something because you like it. You buy comic books every week. You eventually have boxes and boxes of comic books, or progressive rock albums, or cassettes. You have a pile of things. But if you are collecting because you know that if you don't do it, maybe nobody else will, it takes on an urgency of need, of holding a position of responsibility in the history of these items, of holding a position of authority, of responsibility in this area. Now, as I've had years behind me, I have met many people who have confronted what ends up being the end of it all. I've talked to old men barely keeping it together while boxes and boxes of unsorted items live in the basement or the attic. Sometimes those old men are gone, and I'm talking to their families. Still other times I'm mailed a box from somebody who found out that something was at risk, they rushed in to get it, and then they discovered they weren't going to be the person to process it. And sometimes I get these and I realize I'm not the person who's going to process it. Either because these are printed versions of things that I know are on microfilm, or they're videotapes of commercially available works where, after I talk to a few experts, I discover a very vanishingly small percentage aren't already in some way archived, available, able to be gotten. So I don't do them all. I don't throw them out. I label them as such, put them into the Internet Archive's physical archives, marked for the next generation, and move on. And by the way, if this starts to sound like I'm building my very own version of an old man's pile of things to confront, you would not be far off the mark. The idea of what's going to happen to these literal shipping containers that I have filled within the Internet Archive is going to be interesting. For the moment, though, I'm dealing with things on a much smaller scale. A person's family sends me boxes of what their parents collected. I go to a location and walk away with spindles or notebooks or papers from somebody. People hand me items that will have, in some way, a future. We get into the philosophy of what exactly needs to persist. If we have things that have been recorded, are part of the culture, are part of learning, need to be referenced, are in danger of being forgotten, destroyed, removed, you end up having a much stronger incentive to do something, whether it's digitize it, mark it as important, put it aside, you name it. You never know. When I collected piles and piles of fanzines, fan fiction, zines that people had created that represented years of others assembling them, collating them, I knew that this was just another stepping stone for this material. There were institutions out there that could take the material, but they wanted them indexed. They wanted to know what was in them, and time was of the essence. That little difference between quote-unquote professional institutions and working on things as I do can sometimes be the difference between destruction and preservation. Because I'm not overly concerning myself to make sure that all duplicates have been removed, or that an essay or a book's worth of justifications exist for why the material is here. What that has left me with are boxes and boxes of items that I open up and I remember the story of how they got into my hands, and then I make a decision. Maybe a decision of inaction for now. Other times a delight that I have gotten the equipment to process it, to digitize it, to have it analyzed and create indexes of what's in it and have it be of value to people in both the contemporary space and some amount of future to come. But rarely I do see where a person has truly wasted their time, where they have truly indexed items that have their own inherent indexing just looking at them, or the indexing is wrong and analytical software will do the job much better. My heart aches for people when I see that they have spent so much time scrawling on DVD-ROMs or writing into a notebook things that the material itself will expose. There's very little somebody can do to convince people otherwise. But the fact is that just keeping items in a box, especially as life goes on, is proving more and more just fodder for automatic analytical software, to where we will have assistive technology to tell us what we are looking at. Not just that people are in it, but what's being discussed, and coming up with subject clouds and interlinking information between AVI files, ISO files, and so on. I would say, in fact, sometimes the writing is a distraction. It's not related to what's there at all. Other times, where I can, those writings should themselves be digitized because the history of the person who put everything together is itself absolutely fascinating. Ultimately, however, what people focus on is, did I successfully save it? Did I take something that was truly destined for doom and preserve it? And the answer is yes, you did it. You usually put together something. Now, there may be others who did it as much as you did. It may turn out that there are versions out there that are easier to digitize, so yours might not be digitized. But in point of fact, you were functioning as a sentinel against Oblivion. Whether you're redundant or not, the work needed to be done. the pleasure, the luxury of being able to compare various attempts at saving something provides us with information we would have never had if only one person did it. So at no point do I consider redundancy a sin. Obviously, looking at some of the collections I've put together or collections I've made sure go online, I don't judge subject matter. Subject matter is a process of putting things from the human culture into the world. It doesn't need another gatekeeper. It's hard enough to create in this world and get it somewhere that people can experience it. I don't need to kneecap you at the finish line. So ultimately, I am incredibly impressed and have a huge amount of respect for those people who toil in the darkness, who work to collect something that matters to them, and never wavering that they have to do it. They finish what they've done, they look over what they have, and the next step begins. I am very, very privileged and very happy to be the one that receives them. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It. Thanks to James Big Koyanu, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, Joey Mink, David Fisher, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. Right now I'm going through a number of collections that I've described before and which are involuntary collections. They're not considering themselves the keeper of the materials. In many cases, they made the materials and they just either forgot or didn't care about the storage of hundreds of videotapes or audio cassettes or papers. And somebody comes along, finds the now forgotten pile, and offers them to me. So my digitizing of them may be the first time that anybody has looked at them. I am happy not to be the destination, but to be one more set of hands doing a fireman's carry of material into the future.